Welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today I'm so excited to have Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. on the show. Don Miguel Jr. has taken the lessons of his father, Don Miguel Ruiz, the author of The Four Agreements and grandmother, and discovered his own personal freedom. Being able to apply his teachings to the world around him gave Miguel Jr. a new understanding of the lessons his father and grandmother had passed on to him, once again giving him the desire to pass on his beliefs. He's the author of the books The 5 Levels of Attachment, Living a Life of Awareness, The Mastery of Self, and the Don Miguel Ruiz's Little Book of Wisdom. He also co-authored the book The 7 Secrets to Healthy, Happy Relationships with his dear friend HeatherAsh Amara. After decades of training, Miguel Jr. was finally ready to share everything he had learned. As a Nagual, he now helps others discover optimal physical and spiritual health so that they may achieve their own personal freedom. Don Miguel, so wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephan. It's really an honor to be here on your program. Thank you.
Oh, it's an honor for me, and
congratulations on your baby.
Thank you so much. It's it's a beautiful gift from the universe. He is a miracle baby. So I would love to get, first of all, a sense for how you have this incredible family tradition where not only is your father this accomplished and powerful writer and sharer of wisdom that many of us will have already known of from the book The Four Agreements especially, but also you're an author, your brother is an author, you have so much wisdom in the family to share. The books just keep coming. It's amazing. So can you share a bit about this family tradition and where all this wealth of wisdom comes from?
Sure. Well, I'm basically honored to be part of a family of healers. You know, that my father is a great man. I think he's learned a lot about his ancestors through his own practice. But you can say that the spearhead of the family has been my grandmother, Madre Sarita, my father's mom. She is still, even though she passed away 11, 12 years ago now, she's still the head of the family in a spiritual sense. You know, she is the one that had this strong desire to share the family tradition outside of the family. Say that my lineage goes, you could say my father is the apprentice to my grandmother, Madre Sarita. My grandmother, she was the apprentice of her father, Don Leonardo, and he was born in the 1883. He was a soldier during the Revolutionary War. He imagined raising a child during the Mexican Revolution. Then his father, Don Ezequiel Macias, Don Ezequiel was 53 years old when Don Leonardo was born, so that makes him, he was born in 1832 to 1831, and he was the first Mexican in the family. Before that, his parents, we don't know the name of his parents. They were subjects to the King of Spain because it was part of the New Spain. So Don Ezequiel, that's, you can say that's the source of the family. He's the one who says we're Toltec. So we'll give it with a grain of salt, if it's true or not, but he's the one that says that. So when he started teaching, he was very much that old traditional Nahual, the shaman look with a big hat and everything, the little pictures we have of him. And his story was of tricksters and stories that he shared, but he shared it with a very few members of the family. He shared it only with his friend Gandara, but just very few people just within the family, because it was still somewhat taboo to talk about anything outside of the Catholic tradition in Mexico at the time. The Holy Inquisition no longer existed, or at least had power in Mexico, but the shadow was still there, so it was taboo to talk about anything outside of it. So it stayed within the family. Then his son, Don Leonardo, took a different direction. He was a soldier and he is a band leader. So his style was more disciplined, more of a straight to the point attention. Focus your attention on what you're doing as a musician and as a soldier. So he taught the tradition in his own unique way based on that, combined with Don Ezequiel and then his own. But taboo still existed, not as powerful as it was during Don Ezequiel's lifetime in the 1800s, but he still didn't teach outside the family much. He kept it within the family, shared it with some of his grandsons and great grandsons and sons, and just kept it like that. And then one of his apprentices was my grandmother, Madre Sarita, and she rebelled against the tradition. I guess you can say Don Leonardo also rebelled. If Don Ezequiel was that kind of trickster kind of guy, that stereotypical shaman, Don Leonardo went the opposite and went soldier. Well, Sarita also went her own way until she lost her son and she got sick and she had an experience where she questioned everything. So she went back to the one person she trusted about these things, which is her father, Don Leonardo. And from there, she began practicing her tradition in her unique way. Because she was healed by a faith healer, a curandera, she continued to practice that as well. She engaged in faith healing, curanderismo, and practiced what her father and great grandfather, as her grandfather, sorry, taught her. And she began to heal people. And at that point, thanks to President Lázaro Cárdenas in the 1930s, 1940s, where he put a presidential decree that he wanted more traditional music in Tijuana, because at the time Tijuana was more geared towards the American tourist. The band leader that led that band that President Lázaro Cárdenas requested was my grandfather. So from Juanacatlán, Jalisco, which is a small town outside of Guadalajara, a small little pueblo, like the one you can imagine, a stereotypical image. They moved to Tijuana and eventually they made their way into San Diego, where she worked for the state of California doing faith healing. She opened up a little temple right around the same time that she worked for the state of California. And she did that because she had a strong desire to share the tradition outside the family. She wanted to share it with as many people as she could. She healed people, yes. She did her velaciones, her faith healing, but every Thursday and every Sunday she would give a sermon, a cátedra she called it, where she would talk to the community, and similar to Mass, but in her own unique way, she shared the tradition. So it is under that backdrop that when I was a kid, my grandmother was in full-fledged doing that. She was the first celebrity in the family. And I mean celebrity only because she became popular. A year before her death, she was inducted into the San Diego Women's Hall of Fame for continuing the tradition. So growing up, she was the spiritual head. We would all go on Sundays, sometimes on Thursdays, to listen to my grandmother give the sermon and my grandfather, Don Luis. And I grew up with that mentality. And anyone who grew up with a priest or a minister or a rabbi in their family may understand how I grew up. I would go to these sermons, I would go to these lectures. And when my father had his aha moment and he rebelled against the tradition as well, he became a neurosurgeon. And then he had a moment of clarity that changed his whole perspective, which he writes about in his books. And he came back to the family tradition. He let go of being a medical doctor and he focused because he wanted to learn. He wanted to understand how the human mind worked, but he really was engaging because of his experience, his haha moment. So when my father came in, this is 1984, 1986. And he began to apprentice with my grandmother. When my grandmother heard and saw that her son was interested, she created a little group called the Dreamers, and she taught them all how to meditate, or in our tradition what we call dreaming, to learn how to dream and control it. And he little by little he got better and better, and he began to take me to his classes. As he was an apprentice, he started taking me. I was 12 years old at the time, and I had very little interest in it, but I went because I loved my papa, and I remember my grandma. So it's part of the whole thing, it's just part of the tradition. My father begins to teach. He begins to take out some of the superstition that's in the tradition, and he tries to get to a point where he calls common sense, which is the tradition without any distortion, without any superstition, and give you the core. Because in those beginning years, there was a lot of superstition that surrounded the family and a lot of fanaticism as well. So he cleaned it up as much as he could, and the result of that up in 4 agreements. That's basically what he learned from Don Leonardo, Don Ezequiel, de Sarita, and the 4 agreements, the Mastery of Love, and all these books are the end result of him taking out as much as he could of all the superstition and taught it. So when he first started, he was under the shadow of my grandma Sarita. And little by little, he just started coming out of that shadow and doing it in his own unique way, to the point where he is now the focal point of the family. He's the one who's renowned to a certain degree. He's the elder statesman, along with my uncles, Don Carlos, Luis, Jaime, and Don Leonardo. The 5 remaining of the 13 children that my grandmother had. She had 13. My father's number 13.
Wow.
So under that backdrop, just to sum it, that's where my brother Jose and I come in. I grew up during that time where my father was doing the juxtaposition between spirituality and academia, and I grew up in that sense. My family was very much spiritual, and I was going to school. I was part of the International Baccalaureate. I was very much into academics and into logic, and that's what I was engaged into. And then I got into film, and I worked in film for a while. So that was my interest. Jose was more of a spiritual. He loved he went to India, he went to all these things, and it was more of a spiritual approach. My father taught me through logic, through my brother with spirituality, and my younger brother, Leo, we're 3, through poker, because that's what he was interested to. I say this because my dad found a way to teach all 3 boys the same tradition in 3 different languages. It's the same concept. In fact, if you ever hear my brother and I teach at the same time, we sound different, but we're teaching the same thing. It's just different concepts. We encapsulate, the people who like logic, which is the part I give, and Jose, who goes into spirituality, and the people who resonate with that. And we're talking the same thing, of course, but it encapsulates that. So you can say that was the color by which I began to write my own books. So for me, with all that being said, I got into this, one, because of love. I love my grandmother. I love my father. That was part of the apprenticeship that I gave him. But I had a moment of heartbreak where I no longer projected and actually began to apply the work when I was 27 years old. And I was in the middle of working in the film industry. And then around that time, my father suffered a massive heart attack that left him with 15% of the heart capacity. So I can say I stopped working in the film industry and helped my father, to help him, because he could only speak for about 10 or 15 minutes. So he would look at one of us to go and help him. Then we would look back at him and he would let us know he's not ready. Yes, he's ready. So if he was ready, he'd take over. If he wasn't ready, I just kept talking. So you can say that was when I was 27 years old, 28. And little by little, by those little nuggets that I gave, because back then I run out of things to say in 15 minutes. Little by little, I just got longer and longer and longer and longer and longer as I began not to be a parrot, not to be a cover band, but I was actually putting into practice what I've learned of the family tradition and putting it in my own words through my own experiences. And that's what I was sharing. I was sharing my experiences. I was sharing how this tradition taught me, how this tradition has helped me. And that's how little by little, it's like if in 2004, I ran out of things to say in 15 minutes, last year I did a workshop in Omega that lasted 5 days, and I ran out of things to say. After doing about a good 48 to 50 hours of workshop, and I ran out of time because I ran out of time. So that's how little by little. So in writing all the books I've written, I'm on 5 books. I'm writing my 6th one as we speak. It's been tangents. For example, I wrote the 5 levels of attachment, which is my grandmother's teachings to me about attachment, and the question, do you control knowledge or does knowledge control you? And being able to answer that in in different stages of my attachment to things. And growing up, I learned that we attach our beliefs to something and narrows our perception. And then the whole is how to let go. So I'm describing going from level 5 to 4 to 4 to 3. And from 3 to 2, I started going off on a long chapter. And my publisher stopped me because like, wait, you're breaking the line. You know, you're starting a whole new thread here. Let's cut that off, hit save on that, finish your thought here. And then when I finish the book, you know, you have a line. Like I edit a book the way I edit a movie. I have a line that they all go together, like line editing. Then once that's saved, once that's thing, I look back at the thing I saved and I begin to work on it. And it's the mastery of self. And then I expand that. So very similar to how my father went from the 4 agreements to the mastery of love. We let the thoughts expand and continue. And when we're writing a book, we let a thought finish. And it takes somewhat discipline not to let a tangent take us out of the line, or at least we have an editor and a publisher to help us with that, of course. But little by little, that's how we've gotten to the point where we've written all these books, not just my brother, my dad, myself. It's just letting our experience continue. So like my grandmother said, if you practice the Toltec tradition the way your father or I do it, I'm paraphrasing my grandmother here, you're killing the tradition. You have to do it your way. And do it the way is that you put all these lessons into practice. And when you do that, life becomes the teacher. And that's how we stop being parrots. You can say we repeat verbatim, but we apply the lessons in life, and life will return us an experience.
Yeah. And you know what? I have to say something here that I was really impressed when I asked you the question before we started recording. I asked you what would make this the best podcast interview you've ever done. And your answer was just simply that I'll do the best I can, or something to that effect, which is one of the 4 agreements, to always do your best. And I recognized that, and I was really touched by that, because you are embodying the teachings that you got from your family. And it was not, it just seemed so natural that it was, I just noticed it. I was really impressed.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But by the way, I met your brother Jose at Conscious Life Expo. He was giving a workshop that I attended, my wife and I, and it was great. So yeah, you've got an amazing family.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, it's we like to share our experience. You know, we all go through dark times. You know, and out of those dark times, you know, we can either let those dark times sink us, or we can use it to help us. And once it helps us, we can share that experience of how we got out of it with others, and might help them in that way.
Yeah, yeah.
But enjoying.
When you shared that experience that you went through at 27 years old, and I remember, or I just it reminded me of something I learned from my wife Orion, and that is it's always a gift, just sometimes the bow's on the bottom. And in that case, that was heartbreaking and very difficult, and it allowed you to step into your greatness. And there was an incredible gift there. Even people passing away, you know, we put so much heartache into all these events that there's also a gift, right? So when my mother passed, which was heart-wrenching for me, she passed on some books that I would never have noticed or paid attention to. I was going through the storage unit, and one of them was on I forget the name of it exactly, but it had the word hormones in it, and it turned out to be very important to my wife Orion. We never would have had the book or known of it or anything other than her passing away. And we have a beautiful baby now, in part because of the start of that process, because she had. I mentioned this to you before we started recording. He's a miracle baby, and part of the miracle is how he was able to be conceived when she had very, very low hormone levels, like incredibly low. So, yeah, pretty miraculous. And yeah, everything happens for a reason. At least I believe that. So.
No, I agree with that. I used to have such a pushback with that expression, everything happens for a reason. But as I've gotten older, it always reflects back, and it's true. It happens for a reason. You never know, but it's always that intent, to move the story forward.
Yeah.
Before I continue, my deepest condolences on the passing of your mom.
Thank you.
And then someone asked me once if the mastery of self is to always be happy. And I said, no. Something my grandmother always taught me is that life always throws a curveball. If you want to make God laugh, tell her your plans. And that's how she always said it. So you see, in the mastery of self, what makes us the mastery of self is that we stop pretending to be something we are not for the sake of someone else's point of view or judgment or prejudice, including our own. We begin to see ourselves for who we are at this very moment. This is how I feel. This is how I experience things. This is my reality. And this is what I have. This is the clay I get to work. So what makes me the master of self in that regards is that first I accept who I am. So when life gets good, when life is good, it is the thing that allows me to enjoy it, to have fun with it, to appreciate it, to not take it for granted. Because the other part that helps me not take it for granted is life sometimes gets tough. It's hard, it's as a parent, you'll find out all about it. We go through our ups and lows, but it's when life goes in those lows that's when we put into practice everything we learned to move the story forward. And that's really when we apply all the lessons we've learned, not just in my case the Toltec tradition, but every teacher I've ever had in my life, and how to take a step forward. That's the thing, is that in that step forward, for as long as we're alive, anything is possible. It all that matters, it starts with that first acknowledgement, the awareness of self. Once we're aware of where we're at, we ask ourselves, okay, what direction do I want to go in? What do I want to create with this? Where do I want to not fix it, but how do I want to resolve this? Which is somehow it's different. Fixing it and resolving it is somewhat different. Resolving it is like, all right, this is how I feel. How do I create a result that I want? Fixing it is keeping the result I wanted from breaking apart. But if you realize, all right, this is where the stage is, and it's falling apart because it's no longer the truth. It's no longer really relevant in life. It's something that I'm doing my very best to maintain right now, but it's just an illusion. Well, the best thing to do at that moment is to let it go and see, okay, how can I reset the button and how can I start anew? And then we let go of the thing that's no longer working, and it's not working because it's not its time yet. But at that moment, all right, I want this, I want that. How can I? So when I was 28 years old, after a year of putting into this practice, I was working in the film industry, and I saw that I was always going to be working from, this could be my last job, this could be my last job, this could be my last job, which was something that happens in the film industry. And what do I want? What do I want my 30s to look like? And I said, well, I want to be a father and a husband. Well, what kind of father and a husband do I want to be? One that's there. All right, can I do that in the film industry? And the way I was working, the answer was no. It's my shortest day is 12-hour day. It's tough. So which side do I want to do? The other one was like, well, I love it, but it doesn't satisfy me. This side does. So I switched careers. I switched. Luckily, I was lucky enough that I was working with my father, and that helped me along in that transition. But when I make that shift, it's when I met my wife, and we fell in love. Babies came right away, but it came without. When I met her, I already made that situation happen. similar to what you guys had to go through, acknowledging and accepting the truth of where you both were and how your bodies were handling it. And that didn't stop you. You found a way. And now that's the miracle. We create miracles following our intent. A teacher once taught me this. The key to enlightenment is effort. That's it. That's the key to enlightenment, effort. Effort is since then I've learned this, using the energy that I use to move my legs, to move my arms, to create a thought. That's what effort is, putting one step forward. Discipline is remembering to apply that effort every day. That's it. Forget about the drill sergeant in your head. Discipline is just simply making a choice each morning or each day to take that step. And success is actually following through on that effort to the point where here you are. And now that we have the miracle, now that's here, what else can we do? And the beautiful thing about that question is that only we, I, or my beloved, or the group I'm with, can answer it. But in my own life, only I get to answer, what else can I do? And the beautiful thing about the answer is, I can do anything. And I say it with confidence only because I've done it before. I can do it again. And to a certain point, that's the key to having purpose in life. Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And, grief, we have grief because we love. If we didn't love, we would not have grief. So it's the most beautiful thing. Sometimes the dark stuff happens in life because we love someone or something or a situation and we're mourning it. But it's okay to mourn it. It's just it gets to the point where we get attached to it or we get addicted to it, where we stop taking a step forward. But if we take a step forward, each step helps us heal. And it's just, once again, the thing that allows us not to take for granted that which we have in life.
Yeah. Yep. So true. Now, one thing I learned when you had mentioned your grandmother saying that tell God your plans and make her laugh, and that was awesome. That reminded me of teaching I got from Kabbalah. I've been studying Kabbalah for the last few years. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Had a few different Kabbalah teachers on this podcast. One of these concepts I learned that was really powerful is that certainty is not of this realm. Certainty doesn't exist in this realm of existence. And so if I've heard this before from other kind of personal development gurus, is that just be comfortable being uncomfortable. In other words, be okay with the uncertainty. And this helped me to come to grips with that, to overlay that wisdom with this additional wisdom that certainty doesn't even exist here. It's just a fallacy that we tell ourselves. So we go through the motions and we expect the same outcome every day. We get up in the morning, we do our morning routines or morning rituals, which, by the way, I'd love to hear what yours is. But that just gives us this false sense of security. It's not real. I wondered what your thoughts were on that.
No, yeah, that's the thing. We try to hold on to the things that makes us feel comfortable, and that's fine. But sometimes, like you said, get uncomfortable, and the uncomfortable is actually what helps us transition. For example, right now I'm on day 21 of a cleanse where I've stopped drinking coffee. I haven't had a simple carb in a while, meaning bread or my bagels or anything like that. Well, bagel's not a simple carb, that's a complex carb, but I haven't had a bagel in a while. Dairy, and I've reduced my salt intake, sugar intake quite a bit. I stopped drinking 3.5 years ago. But the letting go of coffee, that was an intense week. Yeah, if you can imagine that. The headaches were intense. But I made a decision because one day I realized that, one, I like coffee. I enjoy coffee. It's very nice and very comfortable. It's a very good thing, especially after you let go of alcohol. Coffee is just one of those things. And I let go of alcohol because I have sleep apnea. Sleep apnea was intensified because when I drink alcohol, it relaxed my muscles so much that at night I stopped breathing and I was waking up with heart palpitations. And what was happening is that my muscles had gotten so relaxed that intensified my sleep apnea, and the heart palpitations were happening because it was trying to send blood to my brain. Now the consequence of that could be a heart attack or a stroke. Because I don't want that, and I wasn't really a heavy drinker, but I realized that it was no longer worth, the drinking. The effort was not, the consequence was no longer worth the effort. So I stopped, and drinking coffee and so that's all that kind of thing. But 21 days ago, I realized that I was drinking coffee, and even though I liked it, there were days where I took a cup of coffee only to avoid the headache of not having coffee.
Mm.
And all of a sudden I realized I don't want that to have that much power over me. I didn't like that. I got to the point where, wait a minute, I do like coffee, but it definitely has a little power over me because I don't want that headache. So now I'm consuming because I want to avoid something. So
that was attachment.
that was the attachment, yes. And I realized, all right, you know what? I'm ready to let go of that. Because I was saying for a long time, well, at least I have my coffee now, but I wasn't worth it anymore. So one Monday, I had my last cup of coffee with my mom and dad, and got on the plane, flew home, and came home where it's a little easier to control it. And for 5 days, the headaches were gnarly. It was painful. It definitely was. My moods were not good. I was not feeling happy. Sure, my temper was put to a test. I was able to control it, of course, but it's when you're not feeling good, your ability to control your emotions becomes a little complicated. But I was able to do it pretty good, so I survived that. But then there came the morning where I woke up with such a fog. It wasn't a headache, but it was a fog that I just kind of felt a little disoriented, a little bit like that. And then the next morning, I was like a good week into it. Like if my last cup of coffee was on a Monday, the following week's Wednesday, I woke up with that. Oh wow, well that's nice. Not having a headache, not having a fog, and not having that craving. I was out. And then it's been 21 days, and I've gone to coffee shops with my brother, and I wasn't tempted at all, only because I know that that headache was not worth the consequence of taking that cup of coffee. And now at this point, I'm at a point where, I feel so much better. I feel good. All of a sudden, like that discomfort gave way to comfort. And the only difference was my body healed itself or simply was feeling better. Yeah. Now I have energy. Now I'm like, it's incredible. It's like I've reduced a lot of all that stuff during the cleanse, and I'm still going kickboxing. I'm running my 5 miles because I run marathons and half marathons. I'm training for a half marathon right now. And one of the biggest illusions broke apart is that all of a sudden I realized I don't need that much fuel in order to do that. Because I was eating like a bagel and something else, just all this, and then I was eating quite a bit. I was overcompensating a little bit, but then I realized, hey, my body can do more than I thought I could do. Of course, I need food. I'm gonna have some nutrition before I go for a run. I'm gonna take the protein. I'm gonna eat an avocado. I'm gonna take that smoothie that I have. And then about an hour later, I'm going to go for that run. And I ran 5 miles. I proved myself wrong. I proved myself own self-doubt. And that's the thing. It's like one of the reasons why I run is that I'm able to cross thresholds my self-doubt told me I couldn't cross. And I enjoyed proving my self-doubt wrong. So based on that experience with running, letting go of alcohol, letting go of right now coffee and carbs and that kind of things, the simple stuff. It's this morning I feel phenomenal. I haven't had a cup of coffee and I don't need it to have energy or to wake up. Like you were asking me before, what are part of my ceremonies? I wake up at 5:20 in the morning because my son's school bus picks him up at 6:35 in the morning, and my daughter's at 6:40 in the morning. So we get up, my wife and I. She goes downstairs, gets his breakfast ready. I prompt. My son has autism, by the way. I help him get ready. Now, I don't actually physically change him, but I'm basically giving him the nonverbal, not rules, it's prompts. I'm giving him the nonverbal prompts to put on his clothes, do his hair, and shoes and bathroom, and then go downstairs and he can relax having breakfast for half an hour. And then in that time, I get ready. And then when I go downstairs, I'm ready to walk him to the bus stop and to her bus stop. Then when I come back, my wife and I have half an hour of sitting there together talking before she goes off. Now, that part is important because normally that's when we would have our cup of coffee. That was part of our thing. When I used to have a wine, it would be wine. She and I would have a glass of wine and interact that way. And then we let go of that wine, and all of a sudden we found a way. Now we let go of coffee. I let go of coffee. And now I'm reinventing the way we have that half hour together. To me, that half hour is important because is the 1/2 hour of quiet my wife and I have together. And it's like checking in. It's like engaging each other, listening to what she tells me, I tell her, and it's wonderful. So over the last few years, we've diminished and taken out elements that we thought we needed that for that, and we don't need it. The relationship is that strong. In an essence, going back to it all, is like those little things, those little morning routines, those little things that I do is to remind me that, yes, out of the discomfort, at the end, there's a threshold that you crossed that you thought you couldn't cross. And that reminds you of how strong you are, of the confidence you have of yourself, that you don't need those crutches to do those things that you thought you needed to do. You can do those things and find new ways to get there. Of course, I run. I take my dogs out for a run or walk. I work on the book. I do interviews, and sometimes I watch documentaries on the TV when I have those simple times to myself. But when I come back from traveling, because I tour a lot, the thing that helps me ground myself is doing laundry. There's something about doing laundry that makes me feel at home. It's I wash the dishes and I do the laundry, and there's something about doing the laundry that calms me, makes me feel at home, and centers me. That is interesting. It's like the things I do for my family. Like when it snows, for example, here, if it's a snowy day, I kind of skip some of the things I just told you about. I put on my jacket, I put on my coats, and I start shoveling the snow because I know that the sooner I shovel, because it's still powder. If it's still powder, it's easier to shovel than when it turns ice or gets slushed. Then it's really hard work. But I will still do it because there are kids that walk to the bus stop that go through the front of the house. So I want to make sure that pathway is clean for them and my family, of course. There's something about giving and doing it is calming, but at the same time, just like doing the laundry, there's a silence and a quietness that comes to shoveling snow that brings peace to me. And an activity like that centers me, shoveling snow, doing laundry, doing the dishes, walking the dog, little things, the little mundane things in life that I'm there for service. Like I'm at service to my family and to my community in my own unique way.
Yeah, I can relate to that. By the way, yeah, there's this kind of conventional wisdom with quote unquote successful people that you want to delegate everything possible that's not your unique ability, that's not your uh, your kind of core how you make money, etc. And like I remember Dr. John DeMartini explaining that he's not made a meal in many, many decades. He doesn't like it. He won't do it. He just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't do it. And there are certain aspects of my life that might seem mundane where I don't, I could just pay somebody, pay a service like grocery shopping. I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when my wife Ryan comes with me, we have just a wonderful time shopping together. Now we don't do that so much now with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's either one or the other of us, but I still enjoy grocery shopping. I way enjoy it more when she's with me, but I wouldn't want to just give that up and have a service deliver all of our groceries. It kind of cuts you off from your humanity, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. There's the things that reminds us that it's funny, the things that mom and dad and my grandmas, they made me do when I was young. It was such a I have to do this chore, but now those same chores are the things that make me feel happy. It's nice, when I work too, when I'm working and doing a presentation, a lecture, I still get the butterflies, but something about those butterflies allows me to really do the work I do. In fact, every time I do an interview, I get nervous right before. I'm like, is this going to be the one that all of a sudden I forget everything and I draw blank and I'm like, what did I just say? It's it's the things that keep you humble, and it's always nice to feel humble. It reminds me that I'm human, just like you said.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I still get nervous in front of TV cameras.
Yeah.
That makes me nervous. Yeah.
But isn't it funny? It's like, if you have a camera or an audience, things come out easier. But if you didn't have an audience or a camera and you have, say, a recording device in your hand or something, you take one, take two, take three, take four, take five. It's like it doesn't come out as fast because there's not that sense of urgency. I can edit and edit and edit, but there's something about a live television camera or even just a recording of a camera in an interview setting or something like that, or production setting, as well as an audience, that all of a sudden it's like you jump into the pool and there's no turning back once you've done that leap. You're going into that water and you're gonna swim.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like
That's a great point. Uh, that distinguishes it for me. That if it's a live TV appearance, that's a whole other level of nervousness, and that everything's on the line. I get that a little bit with or that I don't know. I get into a perfectionism state when I'm recording, let's say, a podcast
Mm-hmm.
episode where it's just me and I have the ability to edit myself and to restate it, whatever. I've just become this perfectionist. I've only recorded one episode from this was my other show, Marketing Speak, where that was just a solo episode. Everybody loved the episode, but it took me probably 3 times longer than normal because I kept self-editing and
Mm-hmm.
being a perfectionist about it. It was kind of painful, so I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. I just get into a flow state when I'm talking to others, and it's a conversation. I'm communicating instead of just presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find the same problem when I'm writing. It's one of the things that I had to learn to let go, because it would take so many hours to write 2 paragraphs, and the reason why is because I was editing and editing and editing. It took a while to learn to write with the heart and edit with the mind, which is to learn to trust myself and purge just all my words and just write, write, write. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It doesn't have to be profound. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be relevant. It's just let all the thoughts go, 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 go. You finish, hit save, walk away, come back an hour or two later, and you hit copy and paste. That way you have the mastery. Never touch the master. That's something I've learned from working in the film industry. Never touch the master. You edit the copies. And I start editing. Now I edit with the mind because now I'm translating it to so that someone else can understand. The first audience of a manuscript is myself. That's why that first transcript, that first manuscript, as you'd say, is so disheveled, so chaotic, so like I'm filling the holes in my own mind. The audience is me. But when I'm editing with the mind, the audience is no longer me. The audience is my reader, and my reader doesn't have me to be there to answer the questions. The book has to answer it as much as it can. So you begin to translate it to a language that someone else can understand. That's where you edit with the mind. But always the most difficult part was always that first stop, especially when I first started writing, because I would spend hours writing 2 paragraphs, and I learned to purge, and I learned to record my classes like the way we're doing right now, and from there transcribing it and then editing that, because that was the purge. Because like you said, there's something about being in front of an audience where the conversation happens, and you have to let go of it being perfect, because you don't have power over the edit of it. It's live. You've jumped into the pool, and there's no turning back from that jump. You're gonna get wet, and the splash and the movement sometimes create amazing things. And that's how you edit. That's how you write. That's how you make a film. That's how one creates a work of art. It's the willingness. I'm going to quote Dave Grohl here from Foo Fighters: the willingness to suck, to be terrible, the willingness to be terrible. I don't know, like if it's rating or I can even use that words, but the willingness to
great. Yeah, and I think it ties into attachment too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're attached to always looking good and not looking bad, you hold yourself back and you don't bring your greatness into the world.
Yeah, exactly. And you set yourself up for doing your best. That's how I see it. For example, I moved the computer from that place to here because the lighting is better on this sense. So now that part is set, I can move around and do all these things.
Yep. I'm wondering if you could spend a few minutes talking through the 5 levels of attachment and how our listener can apply this to his or her life.
Sure. Well, let's imagine a flower called awareness. Now, an attachment is investing of yourself emotionally, intellectually, or energetic to something. You make something that's not a part of you a part of you. That's what an attachment is. Now, mind you, there's nothing wrong with an attachment. What makes it wrong is that, well, what makes it tough is that when the time comes to let go, we can't. You see, there's attached and detached. So with that in mind, and my grandmother's question, do you control knowledge or does not control you? Level 1, the authentic self. Imagine a flower that's completely open. The answer to my grandmother's question is, I am a living being, regardless of what I know, regardless of what I think, I know I'm alive. And who I am, what I am, is simply the experience of being alive. That's it. I don't need anything else to know who I am. And awareness is a communion with my environment and within myself at this very moment. So I'm open. This is level 1, the authentic self, the individual that lives in this very moment. Level 2, preference. My mind is so powerful that I can go in any direction in life. So out of all the possibilities, I like this one. That's my preference. So I'm going to use knowledge as an instrument that's going to allow me to go in that direction in life, my preference in that life. So you could say I engage a moment. And the answer to my grandmother's question is I'm aware of my authentic self, and I'm going to use knowledge as an instrument to inform my choices. But I'm the one making the choice. So imagine you engage a moment, and when the moment's over, I'm able to disengage, attach, detach, attach, detach, attach, detach, engage, disengage. Very natural in life. Here in Reno, it's like this. In San Francisco, New York City, it goes like that, right? So it's natural. You know, at level 3, identity. Imagine we engage a moment, but when the moment is over, we're not able to disengage. That is because now the best way to attach ourselves to something is to identify ourselves with that preference. You know, whether the thing we eat, the book we read, the team we have. You know, it's like the analogy I have in the book is of a football team. Is that imagine you go to a football game, and at level 2, when the referee blows the whistle to end the game, your detachment to the game ends, to the team ends. It means nothing about your life. You enjoyed the ups and downs of the game. If your team won, great. If it didn't, oh well, next time. But it's the team who lost. But you enjoyed the game. So when that referee blows the whistle to end the game, that's the moment where we detach. Well, imagine the referee blowing the whistle and we don't detach. Now the winning infects and impacts the rest of my week. It makes me feel good. If we lost, it makes me feel bad, and I don't want to look in the eye of someone who rooted for the other team or something. But it begins to impact me because now I identify myself with that team or identify with my preference, so I engage it. So at that point, the answer to my grandmother's question is knowledge and I are one. I know myself through what I identify myself. I think, therefore I am, that kind of thing. So at that point, and there's nothing wrong with this, of course. You can say the majority of the people in the world are here. But it's a slippery slope, of course, because at that point, we can use that identity to domesticate ourselves, to condition ourselves to live up to that image. Domestication is a system of reward and punishment by which we model the behavior of an individual, where if we live up to the expectation, we're worthy of love. And if we don't live up to the expectation, we're worthy of the punishment. Emotional beings, that reward feels like acceptance, which feels like love, and the punishment feels like rejection, and the lack thereof of love is the way we run conditional love. So at that point, when we attach ourselves to this identity so much that we use it to model ourselves after it, is when we begin to internalize that identity. So the answer to my grandmother's question is knowledge gives me the rules by which I live my life. And it gives me the rules by which I know myself, and it gives me the rules by which I relate to other people as that flower closes even more, to the point where it leads us to level 5, fanaticism. So level 1, the authentic self. Level 2, preference. Level 3, identity. Level 4, internalization. Level 5, fanaticism, where that awareness closes completely and everything I know becomes a filter that distorts my perception of life. It started at level 4, level 5, but at level 5 it really just feels solid. It tells me who to hate, it tells me who to love, who to reject. If you follow the same team I do, you better behave. You represent the whole thing. It's not passion, it's obsession. So at that point, we let our beliefs dictate who we're supposed to be, and we're blinded because we can't see beyond the tips of our nose, because our awareness is dictated by our attached beliefs that are now filters. Where at level 1, level 2, even to a certain point, level 3, those filters let us see life as is. But beginning at level 3 towards level 5, it corrupts what we perceive. So how to let go? We have a moment of clarity. A moment of clarity without any action is just a thought that passes in the wind. But a moment of clarity followed by action becomes a pivotal moment in our life. And we can use the four agreements. So the fifth agreement: be skeptical, but learn to listen. Is it true what I believe in? And then, just to sum it up, the truth exists with or without us. It doesn't need us for it to exist. But a belief only exists for as long as we say yes to it. As soon as you change that yes into a no, it ceases to exist, which means if you give it scrutiny, will it survive your scrutiny? Meaning by that, if you give it scrutiny, is it the truth or is it a belief, which is a distortion or, well, an illusion,
Yeah.
actually, more than anything. And
Wow.
it's only a distortion because we have attached ourselves so much to that belief that it clouds our vision. And it's actually the filter that distorts our perception. But the truth doesn't distort our perception.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I see some uh, connections there with what you're describing to Byron Katie's The Work, where she's got
Oh,
the five questions and the turnaround. So, is it true? Can I know with absolute? It's actually four questions.
yeah.
Is it true? Can I know with absolute certainty it's true? Uh, how does this thought make me feel? And what would life be like if this thought didn't exist? And then to take your original thought, turn it around, and come up with the opposite or multiple opposites. Like the thought is, this person doesn't like me. Then an opposite would be, oh, I don't like this person, or another opposite would be, was actually this person does like me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and see if the four questions are more true for that turnaround thought than your original thought. It's a really powerful process. She calls it the
Nice.
work. I'm guessing you're aware of it.
No,
No,
you just let me know about it, but it's pretty cool.
yeah, it's amazing, and I've had her on this show. It's yeah, one of my favorite episodes. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
I have to listen. I'll be honest with you. I rarely read self-help books or spiritual books. I mostly read history books and physics. Those are the two things I love. I love reading about history and biographies and the history of humanity and things. Then I like to read nature, but physics. It's just I love reading books on physics. It's just I just enjoy it so much.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite book that you want to share with our listeners, or maybe even a favorite documentary too?
Whew, yeah, let me see. Uh, walk around here. All right, let's see. Well, the book that my father gave me at the age of 13 is this little book called Damien by Herman Hesse. It's a very good book. Impressive. Like it's the book that my father gives us when we turn of age. So all three boys and cousins and few other people who he has that relationship with, he gives that book to. So that one's Herman has Damien. Let's see here. Um, the other book that is just phenomenal. Carl Sagan, The Varieties of Scientific Experience. I enjoy this book very much. I really, really like it. My favorite author is Neil Gaiman and the Sandman series. I love Neil Gaiman and the Sandman. It's a book that as comics, you can say I was a teenager when I began to read Neil Gaiman. Let me see here. The other book I love is Cien Años de Soledad by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude. It's a phenomenal book. I love this book. It's very enjoyable. Where is it? Where's not that? It's not there. I am looking for you. You are not. Ah. Amor en tiempos de cólera. That's my number one book of all time since I was a teenager. Is Love in Time of Cholera. I just love this book. This is one of my absolute favorites. Um, I think I lend it out, but I have a second part. So I tend to lend books out. So um, Yuval Noah Harari, he wrote *Sapiens* and *Homo Deus*. These two books together, I love. It's phenomenal. I really enjoy these two books. He did a great job of explaining what we know in our tradition as the dream of the planet. He explained it very good. And then in my personal life, of course, in relationship to my children, is The Autistic Brain by Temple Grandin. That's that helped me a lot to understand my son and a few other people in my life. So Temple Grandin. Then, where are you? As I was saying that, it reminded me of another book. But where are you? People have asked me to write a book about parenting. And I thought about it, but to a certain point, here you are. I thought about it because the book that I would recommend has already been written, and it's How to Raise an Adult by Julie Lithcott Himes. Sorry if I butchered the last name. Lithcott. Julie Lithcott Himes. She was the dean of admissions at Stanford University, but this book about parenting is phenomenal. I really enjoy it. Yeah, so I have many books that I can go. Documentaries. The History of Light. It's a documentary made in Korea about astrophysics, or no, it's trying to explain Darwin's theory of relativity, and it's a very good documentary. It's about a 4 or 5 part documentary that was aired in Nova on PBS. I really enjoyed that one, and of course, I like Nova. I like that show. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I could keep going, but I realize I might be running out of time.
No, this is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm curious. Is
the it's the first time I've ever done that. So,
oh, okay.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. I really appreciated that. I'm curious if A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking is on your bookshelf too.
Oh yeah. Yes. Where are you? Brief History of Time. Tyson. These are my, this is my astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson, of course, right here. Carlo Rovelli, right there. Carl Sagan. There's A Brief History of Time. Where are you? Oh, as I'm looking for it, this one, Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. To me, is one of the most inspirational books. He's had a tough life, but man, how he pulled through. This one, phenomenal. I love it very much. But A Brief History of Time, yes, I have him. I have that book. Where are you?
Very cool. And how about the Elegant Universe? Do you have that one?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I do want to read. Oh man.
I take it you don't read off a Kindle. You read the physical books.
My eyes hurt when I read a Kindle or iBook. It's just there's something about if the two ways I go through a book is audio and audiobooks, especially if I'm driving. But I like to read. This is my bookshelf, and I have another bookshelf upstairs and another bookshelf over there. Yes, where are you? Oh, man. History of Time. I do. Where did I leave you? Amen.
Yeah, what an inspirational human Stephen Hawking was.
Yes, Stephen Hawking was phenomenal. May he rest in peace. I love the book, the movie they made about him, but I really enjoy his writing. Man, I don't see it here. It must be upstairs. Anyways, so these are my books. These are the from Jane Austen to my biographies up here. This one's Paulo Coelho's in there. Well, I don't have it in my bookshelf at the moment, but I have read it and it's phenomenal. I love, how he at the end, he says that all the theories that I've created have as greatest value as the one lady who heckled a professor that says that the earth sits on top of elephants. They're both just as proof because it's not the truth. A theory only can explain as much as it can, but not until it's proven to be a fact. That's why I like the scientific method. Hypothesis, experiment, theory, experiment, fact. It's a discipline. It's a beautiful. Most of us go from hypothesis straight to fact without doing any of the work, but it requires a willingness to take each step and patience and diligence to find out is the truth. Don't make assumptions.
Yes. Another one of those 4 agreements, number 3.
Yeah, there it is.
Perfect.
And where's that book? Now you got me curious. I'm like, where did I put it? Yes. And of course, there's Neruda. That's the book right next to me right now. Residence on Earth. It's this one is good because it's both in English and Spanish. Like every page, it has the Spanish and then the English, so that helps.
Oh, that's cool. I don't know Spanish, but it's a beautiful sounding language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much. And if our listener wanted to start with one of your books, what would you recommend? And if they wanted to go to a website to learn more, follow you, and all that, where would you send them?
Well, website, you can go, like the family's website is my father's website, which is miguelruiz.com, www.miguelruiz.com. Mine is Miguel Ruiz Jr., jr.com. That's my website. And that's our home. Yeah, we're active on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and all that kind of thing, but our website's our home. And of my books that I would recommend, I believe The Mastery of Self. It's my 3rd book, but it's, I have a very special relationship with that. Of course, my first baby, The 5 Levels of Attachment, and Living a Life of Awareness, The Little Book of Wisdom, and The 7 Secrets of Happy, Healthy Relationships. They're all unique. They're all nice, and they deal with different aspects. Mastery of Self, I would say it's the encompassing one so far.
Perfect.
It's my 3rd book.
Thank you so much, Don Miguel. This was wonderful, and have a fantastic rest of your week, and thank you again. Thank you, listener. Now, take this and do something amazing with it. Don't just listen for entertainment value, and apply this in your life and reveal lots of light. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.